Our married man keeps an internal bond with you. Carl Jung. Have you ever noticed how some married men manage to create a connection so deep that it seems to exist only between the two of you? I'm not talking about trivial cases or superficial adventures. I'm talking about that invisible psychological bond that makes you feel like there's something unique going on, even when he comes home to his wife every night. Why does this happen? How does a committed man manage to establish this secret emotional bridge that keeps you thinking about him constantly? The answer lies in the psychological mechanisms that Carl Jung described about inner bonds, those that happen in the deepest layers of the psyche, away from the eyes of the world. He does not need to be physically present. He doesn't have to text you all the time. But somehow, you feel like he's there, connected to you on a level that even his marriage can't erase. In this video, I'm going to reveal exactly how this inner bond works and why it's so powerful. Get ready. What you discover can completely change your perception of this connection. 1. The secret psychological space. Inside his mind is a place that does not belong in marriage. It's like a locked room in a big house, where only you have the key. He created this space specifically to store everything that surrounds you, the conversations, the silences, the looks, the sensations. This mental territory is totally separate from the life he has built with his wife. There, the rules are different. There, he can be who he really is, without masks or social obligations. This space works as a sanctuary where he takes refuge when the reality of marriage weighs too much. While he is having dinner with his family or watching television with his wife, a part of him inhabits this secret place where you exist. That's why he manages to maintain this strong internal connection, even though he's physically distant. The human mind has this extraordinary ability to create parallel realities that coexist without mixing. The most fascinating thing is that this space is strengthened precisely because it needs to remain hidden. Secrecy adds a layer of intensity that ordinary relationships don't have. Every time he thinks about you during the day, he's feeding that psychological territory. Every discreet message, every memory shared, every moment stolen puts more energy into this place. He doesn't do it consciously most of the time. The human psyche automatically creates compartments to deal with contradictory truths. So he can love his wife on one level and desire you on another, without the two realities coming into direct conflict. The brain protects both connections by keeping them separate. You notice this when he talks to you in a completely different way. The voice changes, the look changes, even the body posture changes. It is because at that moment, it is accessing the space where you dwell within it. Everything that exists in this territory is true for him, even if it cannot be true for the outside world. And the more time passes, the more that space expands and solidifies, making the bond between you harder and harder to break. 2. The projection of the hidden soul. There is a part of him that his wife never knew, not by choice necessarily, but because marriage shaped a specific version of who he was meant to be. Responsible, predictable, stable. Over time, entire aspects of his personality were stored in a locked drawer. Dreams that seemed too childish, desires that did not fit the image of an ideal husband, vulnerabilities that he has learned to hide. When you showed up, something inside him recognized an opportunity, not to have just any case, but to finally express these buried pieces of the soul. You have become the mirror where he can see reflected everything he had to suppress. That's why the connection feels so deep and real, because you're in touch with layers of it that no one else accesses. He projects onto you the freedom you have lost, the spontaneity that marriage stifled, the passion that became routine. You represent everything that was left behind when he chose the security of married life, and this projection creates an overwhelming intensity because finally he can breathe and be whole again, even if only in the stolen moments with you. The interesting thing is that this has nothing to do with the wife being inappropriate. She's probably excellent in the role that marriage requires, but precisely because she occupies this place of wife, mother, official companion, she can no longer access the rebellious and savage layers that exist in him. You, by being outside this structure, become the perfect vessel for everything he has repressed. This projection also explains why he idealizes moments with you so much. Each encounter is loaded with meaning because it represents the reconnection with lost parts of oneself. You're not just a woman in his life, you're the gateway to inner territories he thought he'd lost forever. And the more he projects this hidden soul into you, the more impossible the idea of losing you becomes, because it would be like losing yourself again. If you want to understand how a married man keeps an internal bond with you, it's an unconscious process explained by Jung. Jungmethod, pinned in the first comment. Asein 2-3, the ritual of stolen moments. Each discreet message becomes a sacrament. Each brief meeting gains the weight of ceremony. This does not happen by chance. The human mind transforms into a ritual what it needs to protect. When you see each other, even for minutes, there is an absolute quality of attention that rarely happens in conventional relationships. He is completely present because he knows that time is limited and precious. These rituals create a particular mythology between the two of you. The way he touches his face, always the same way. The code in the messages that only you understand. The specific place where they are found has become sacred simply because it houses these moments. All of this builds a unique narrative that strengthens the inner bond far beyond what words could express. The repetition of these rituals also calms the anxiety that comes with a forbidden connection. The human brain finds comfort in patterns, even when the context is chaotic. So that call at the same time, that coffee in the same place, that goodnight message with the same words, all of that creates a sense of stability in a relationship that by nature is unstable. The real power of these rituals lies in what they communicate without having to say it. Each time he repeats the gesture, he is reaffirming, "You are important enough for me to create structures around you. You deserve that consistency even within the chaos." And it touches on a very deep level because it demonstrates intention, not just impulse. What's most interesting is how these rituals create emotional muscle memory. His body begins to anticipate moments with you. The heart speeds up when the time of the call arrives. Hands sweat before the meeting. The adrenaline skyrockets when he sees his name on the screen. This all reinforces the bond because now it's not just mental, it's physical, visceral, inscribed in his cells. 4. The silent language between you. A language has developed among you that needs no words. A cross look in a room full of people says more than 1,000 sentences. The way he breathes when he's around you communicates volumes. This type of nonverbal communication creates an intimacy that goes far beyond what most conventional couples have experienced in decades. This silent language exists precisely because you cannot speak openly. The need for discretion forced the development of alternative channels of connection. You learn to read micro-expressions on each other's faces, interpreting pauses in messages, feeling energy changes even from a distance. It is as if they have developed an emotional telepathy born of the urgency to communicate despite barriers. He knows when you're upset before you even speak. You notice when he's thinking about you even without contact. This is because both have become scholars of each other, attentive observers of every detail, every nuance. This microscopic attention to the other is rarely sustained in normal relationships, where constant closeness dulls the senses. Shared silence has also become a form of intimacy. those moments where they are together without having to fill the space with conversation, where mere presence is enough. These comfortable silences demonstrate a level of connection that only exists when two people really feel safe with each other, even in the midst of all the insecurity of the situation. This particular language also functions as a protection. No one deciphers what goes between you anymore because the code is unique. His wife can see you in the same room and notice absolutely nothing, while volumes of information are being exchanged through imperceptible looks and gestures. This adds another layer to the bond, the feeling of having a secret world that is inaccessible to everyone else. 5. The invisible, emotional refuge. When the weight of marriage becomes unbearable, it's you he thinks about. Not necessarily romantically or sexually, but as a safe place to rest. You represent relief from the pressures that married life imposes, the demands, the expectations, the suffocating responsibilities. All of these disappear when he connects with you, even if only mentally. This emotional refuge works because you don't demand the same things from him that the wife demands. You don't demand the posture of a provider, an exemplary father, a perfect husband. With you, he can simply exist without having to sustain all these social roles. This freedom is addictive because it offers a breather in a life where he constantly needs to perform. The most curious thing is that many times he doesn't even need to be physically with you to access this refuge. Just think about yourself. Remember a conversation, imagine a future meeting. His mind has turned you into a portable sanctuary that he carries everywhere. In times of stress at work, in arguments with his wife, in sleepless nights, you are the mental place where he goes to find peace. This also explains why he comes to you at the worst times. It's not necessarily weakness or manipulation. It's just that you literally became his safe haven. When everything falls apart, the instinct is to seek shelter, and that shelter has its face, its voice, its presence. You have become synonymous with refuge on such a deep level that he cannot always explain it himself. And the more he uses you as a refuge, the stronger the emotional dependence becomes. The human brain creates powerful associations. You equal relief, you equal peace, you equal escape. Over time, these associations become automatic. He doesn't choose to think of you when he's suffering. It just happens, like a conditioned reflex. And it ties you together in a way that surpasses any rational decision. 6. The fantasy that feeds reality. In his head is a version of the two of you that may never exist in the real world. A parallel life where there is no wife, no complications, just the two of you fully living that connection. He cultivates this fantasy constantly, nurturing it with imagined details. What it would be like to wake up next to you every day. What would it be like to introduce you as his mate? What would it be like not to have to hide? This fantasy does not weaken the real bond between you. On the contrary, it strengthens it. It works as fuel that keeps the flame burning even during periods of distance. When they cannot see themselves, when reality forces separation, it is to this imagined life that he turns. And every time you revisit that fantasy, you're reaffirming that you're important enough to deserve that space in his dreams. The interesting thing is that he does not confuse fantasy with reality. He knows perfectly well that these visions will probably never come true. But the human mind does not need real possibility to create meaning. Fantasy serves its purpose regardless of whether it can happen. It offers hope, escape, and a way to process feelings that don't fit into his current life. Often these fantasies are fueled by small crumbs of reality. That weekend they manage to spend together becomes material for months of daydreams. That conversation where you joked about running away together turns into elaborate scenarios in his mind. Each real fragment adds texture and credibility to the imaginary world he has built. And here's the true power of this fantasy. It creates a possible future that justifies the impossible present. If there is even a remote chance that one day you will be truly together, then all the current difficulties are worth enduring. This hope, even if illusory, gives meaning to the suffering and complexity of the situation. Fantasy isn't empty escapism. It's the glue that keeps the bond intact through all the hardships of the real world. 7. The unspoken pact. Between you, there is an agreement that has never been verbalized, but you both respect religiously. Invisible rules that govern this connection. You don't call on weekends. He doesn't promise things he can't deliver. Neither forces the other to choose. This silent pact allows the bond to exist without self-destructing, creating a precarious but functional balance. This tacit agreement also defines what each can expect from the other. You know you'll never be his official priority, but you also know you have a unique place that no one else occupies. He knows that you have your own life, but he trusts that a part of you will always be available to him. These unwritten understandings prevent constant disappointment and allow both of you to navigate the situation with some emotional stability. The pact also involves mutual protection. You don't expose the situation. It doesn't put you at unnecessary risk. There is an implicit care in preserving the world they built together. This creates a deep complicity, a sense of the two of you against the world, united by secrets that only you share. This complicity adds another layer of intimacy to the bond. Interestingly, the limitations imposed by this pact do not weaken the connection. They intensify it. Knowing that they cannot have everything makes them value what they have even more. Every moment together is precious precisely because it is finite and circumscribed. Every conversation matters because there's no guarantee when the next one will be. Scarcity creates value. The most impressive thing is how this pact adapts over time without ever being explicitly renegotiated. You simply adjust the invisible rules as the situation changes. Perhaps he can pay more attention in certain periods and less in others. You may need to step away temporarily. All this happens organically because both understand that the survival of the bond depends on this unspoken flexibility. 8. The truth about this bond. Deep down, both know that this connection exists in a reality of its own, separate from the laws that govern normal relationships. It's not totally romance, it's not just physical attraction, it's not ordinary friendship. It is something hybrid that does not have an adequate name in conventional language. And perhaps it is exactly this vagueness that allows the bond to be so strong. It does not need to fit into any predetermined box. The inconvenient truth is that this kind of connection can coexist with his marriage without necessarily destroying it. They are different spheres of psychological existence. His love for his wife doesn't invalidate how he feels about you, just as his feelings for you don't override his commitment to marriage. The human psyche is vast enough to contain contradictions, but there is a cost. You live in a kind of emotional limbo, always in the shadows, always in the background officially, even if it is a priority emotionally. He lives divided, carrying the guilt of maintaining two parallel realities. Neither of them can talk openly about what they share. The bond is real and deep, but it is also doomed to remain invisible. The question that no one wants to ask, but everyone needs to face is, how long can this last? Internal bonds are powerful, but eventually external reality takes its toll. Either the situation evolves into something different or it wears out under the weight of limitations. It rarely remains static indefinitely, no matter how strong. And perhaps the hardest truth is this: even if it's genuine, even if it's profound, even if it's unlike anything he's ever experienced, that inner bond may never turn into something concrete in the real world. You can remain eternally in this in-between space, intensely connected in invisibility, but separated in visible life. And it is up to each one to decide if this parallel reality is enough, or if eventually the price of living in the shadows becomes too high for the soul to bear. 9. The power of what cannot be said. There is a particular intensity in the things that need to remain unsaid. When you look at yourself and understand perfectly what the other is feeling, but you cannot express it out loud because someone is around. When he wants to say something important but needs to swallow the words because the moment does not allow it. These repressed emotions don't just disappear, they build up, condense, gain strength. Everything that gets stuck inside creates pressure. And this pressure is exactly what makes every small gesture so loaded with meaning. A quick touch on the hand is worth more than hours of affection in an ordinary relationship, because that touch carries all the weight of unsaid things. An exchange of glances communicates volumes because it is loaded with all the phrases they would like to say, but can't. The paradox is that the inability to talk freely about what they feel makes feelings more real, not less. When something needs to be hidden, protected, kept secret, it automatically gains importance. The human brain values that which is rare and difficult to access. If they could shout to the whole world about this connection, maybe it would lose some of the magic it has precisely because it exists between the lines. There's also a deep psychological truth to this. When we're forced to hold back intense emotions, they don't dissipate, they deepen. They descend into more primitive layers of the psyche, where they are protected from outside interference. That's why you often feel like the bond with him is more visceral than anything you've ever experienced, because it's happening at a level that words can't reach. He feels it too. All those times I wanted to tell you something essential, but the phone rang, or someone came into the room, or it just wasn't safe. These swallowed words keep reverberating inside him, creating a constant tension that only finds relief in the rare moments when they can finally be alone. And when those moments come, there's so much piled up that even the silence between you pulses with everything that hasn't been said. What keeps this bond alive is not just the moments they share, but all the moments they would like to share and can't. All the conversations that were half done. All the gestures of affection that needed to be disguised. All of this becomes a kind of potential energy that continually feeds the connection between you, making it more and more necessary, more and more impossible to break.